Kapow! Hello and welcome to Stanchion Snacks, a bit of a mouthful. And we're back live, so to speak. The first 3 episodes were recorded before the season kicked off. So now we can have a little bit of a chat about how we're doing. Not a terrible start to the season. 1 win, 1 draw, 1 defeat. I think if we'd taken our chances, we probably should have won that Stoke game. Also a couple of wins in the cup. I managed to watch the Norwich game. I say managed, all I had to do was pay $14.99 to Now TV for the privilege. But I'm very excited about this cook and very excited about this game because I will be at Vicarage Road. And this is a little bit of a thing here. Now, the 92, managing to go to all 92 grounds in the league. Now, I've ticked quite a few off, and I have been to Vicarage Road before, but to watch Udinese play in a pre-season friendly. Does that count? I don't think it does, but it certainly will count when I go and watch Saints there tomorrow. So, as regular viewers of this will know, each week I cook a dish that represents a player that played for both Southampton and Watford since 1992, which is the year that I pretend I was born. If I was going with my heart, I would probably go with Paul Jones, but as he was a lone player for Watford that only played 9 games, I don't think that's very fair. I tried to pick a player that has played equally for both clubs. Now today's player, who played 41 times, scoring 1 goal, but played 59 times and scored 4 goals for Watford, and that is, of course, Wesley Hoedt.
Prowse to whip it in, and all the way through, and it's in, and it's Wesley Hoedt for Southampton. It's his first ever goal in English football. Showed great composure just to steer it home, but where on earth was the West Bromwich Albion defence?
No, Wesley Hoedt wasn't super popular with all Saints fans, but he was on the pitch for that historic 1-0 win against Swansea, which kept us up a few seasons ago, and anyone that played in that game is okay with me. Now, Wesley is from Holland, which has got me quite excited about this cook. So I've got some ingredients from Holland here. Where have I put them? Over here. So I've got some cheeses, some really nice cheeses. I've got an aged Gouda. I've got a goat, like an aged goat's cheese from Amsterdam. And then I've got this sort of smoked, soft Bavarian cheese here. We'll come back to those in a moment because what I'm basically going to create for you now is a really, really lovely, really sexy cheese toastie and a cheese and chutney toastie. So the chutney is going to be a bit more British. So I've got some apples and some pears, and we're going to get that on straight away. So first things first, I diced up some apples. And I've diced up some pears, and I've also diced up some onion. So I'm just going to whop those straight into this pan here. And then we're going to add some spices, so just a little bit of cracked pepper. I always keep a mix of black, green, pink and white peppercorns in a pepper mill. I think it just gives you a little bit more excitement, and a little bit of nutmeg. A pinch of salt. I only use Maldon's. Now, traditionally, chutney would also have sugar in it, about maybe 1/3 sugar to the amount of fruit that we've got here. But I'm going to do this one a little bit differently because this is a little bit of a hat tip to Watford, the Hornets, so to speak. I'm going to actually make this using honey. Yes, I know, you're all now screaming down the camera at me, but Hornets don't produce honey. But I want to live in a world where they do, you know, where hornets and wasps and bees are loved as much as each other. We gotta do something about these hornets. Have you heard about these hornets down in Hornets Town? They're coming here. They're taking all the nectar, precious nectar. And they're just keeping it all for themselves. You know, they could learn a thing or two about those bees. Heard about these bees? Great bees. Great bees, these bees. They're coming down here. They're taking the nectar, turning it into honey for all. Those honeysts need to learn a thing or two about those bees. Oh, you know what? We're coming for you, honey. So, into this now we're going to add some liquid. So the first thing we're going to add is some apple cider vinegar. About 75 millilitres of this, which is also the same as 75 grams. Because of the old metric system. There we go, 78, that'll do. And then some cider. Just a little bit of this, maybe about 25 mils. I'm just going to add that up just over 100. Oh no, now we've got a tin of cider open. What a shame, I'll get some ice for that in a minute. And then about 85 grams of runny honey. And that is basically it for our chutney. I'm just going to add all of those ingredients together. And then I'm just going to leave it on the back hob there. It's probably going to take about an hour. So there it kind of is. So I'm hoping there's going to be enough sugar. If it doesn't really sort of caramelize too much, I will add a little spoon of sugar maybe. But this is a slightly experimental challenge. I am cooking things kind of that I've cooked throughout my whole career, but obviously I'm having to sort of, you know, create new dishes every week. So we will just give that a good hour. I'll keep an eye on it, and hopefully there's enough sort of sugar in the honey and in the cider that that's going to turn into a nice chutney. So I'm going to leave that on. The only other real prep that we've got to do is I'm just going to grate this cheese and we'll make a cheese mixture up. But whilst that's happening, why don't we watch that Gabbiadini goal? So that is my cheese all grated, and the chutney's just sort of starting to boil up now. I haven't added any more liquid, but that's going to take a bit of time. But the one thing that I was going to add to the chutney that I forgot is a little bit of sumac. I like to keep my sumac in a little sumac rabbit. There he is. So just a little bit of sumac there. And then just to finish this cheese mix, and then we can really chill out, I've got some spring onions, which I sliced, and I've just soaked in a little bit of water. So I'm just going to drain them off. And we're going to mix that with all of the cheese. And then just a little squirt of mayonnaise. For this purpose, homemade shop-bought mayonnaise is fine. We will be making mayonnaise soon in this series, but for this one, not necessarily. So that is it. There's our cheese mix made. Cheese, little squirt of mayo, spring onions. That's all you need. So now we're waiting for the chutney. So I'm going to drink this cider, and I'll see you on the other side. So Wesley Hoedt obviously only scored one goal for Southampton. So here's some clips of him doing other things. I've decided I'm going to cover this chutney with a cartouche. So this is me teaching you how to make a cartouche. So first of all, you need some greaseproof paper, slightly bigger than the pan. And it doesn't matter. So you want to start off like that, bigger than the pan. And then we're going to fold it into quarters. So once and twice. And we want to remember where the middle of the paper is. That bit, and we're then going to fold that into triangles I like cartouches. They're a great use once you know how to make one. They're a brilliant use in the kitchen. I love cartouches so much I've actually named my guinea pig after one. And then you take this triangle you've created and you want to just sort of roughly put it into the middle of the pan. There, so it's touching the middle. And then where the edge is, you rip that off. Now, if we were going for a Michelin star, we would cut that with scissors, but we're not, so it's fine. You then open that up, and now what you have is this little kind of homemade lid that will just sort of, we want the liquid to evaporate, but we don't want it to evaporate too quickly. Sometimes you will cut a little hole in the middle there as well, just to let some of the steam come out. But there you go. That is Gibby's tip of the week, I guess. It's a cartouche for you, which is going to come in very handy later on in this episode. Hello and welcome back to Stanchion Snacks. So the chutney's been on for well over an hour, and in that time quite a lot's happened. I've just boiled the kettle, as you can probably hear. The chutney is cooked down, it's nice and sticky. Let me show you that actually. So I did have to add quite a bit more liquid to this, probably about double what I told you before. But now it's cooked down, it's gone nice and sticky like that. And I've boiled the kettle so that we can jar this up in a sterile way. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to pour some boiling water into this jar. This is an old Nescafe jar. Should do the job. And then with a tea towel or an oven cloth, I'm literally just going to empty that into the sink. So that is now sterile. And then we're just going to spoon this into the jar. And then with like a clean cloth or a bit of kitchen roll, we can just wipe the outside there. And then we can make another cartouche, this time a tiny one. This time we will use scissors because it'll be so small. These scissors, which have made their way into my kitchen, but I've now realised are definitely scissors that I use for my show as a magician, because there's a bit of glow tape on them there, which means I can see them in the dark on stage. Hey ho, that's a bit too much information for you, but there we have like a nice little cartouche, and you just push that inside there, and it doesn't matter if it's too big. That's just stopping any of this sort of excess air here getting to it. Jar up, and that's it. Chutney done. That will last for a good 6 months. Now, the other thing that I realised in the last sort of few minutes, in the last hour should I say, is that this is definitely missing some gherkins. You know, if we're doing something Dutch, gherkins are very Dutch. So I'm just going to sort of do quite a nice chunky slice of these. So I'm just cutting these into quarters, and then I will just run my knife through them like this. And we're going to add that to the cheese mix, which I have lost. There it is. So that's ready to go. So now it's time to talk about bread. So I haven't managed to get myself any paid partnerships yet, as I've only had a few videos and I don't really know how to do them. So if you know how that works, let me know. But I am going to promote a particular bread company now that I really, really do love, and that is Jason's. So, you know, I want this channel to be recipes and things that you guys can actually do. I don't want you to have to order ingredients off the internet or you know, run around specialist shops finding them. So this bread is now in most supermarkets, and it's the best bread that you can find in the supermarket. And if you're ever kind of thinking what bread is good for me or what is good for me, look at the ingredients. You know, if you don't understand the ingredients, you probably shouldn't be eating it. And if there's loads and loads and loads of ingredients, you probably shouldn't be eating it either. But if you were to look on the back of Jason's bread, the ingredients are wheat flour, water, wholemeal spelt flour, sprouted spelt grains, rye flour, fermented wheat flour. So it's time to finish off our cheese toastie. I've got my favourite pan getting hot here on the stove. You know, let's pretend someone's just come into the kitchen. Jack on, chef, one toastie. All right, Willie. So we get our bread. We'll do this in real time, so to speak. So, first thing that we're going to add onto our bread is a bit of our chutney. So just a nice, and this is going to make a big one. This could almost be enough for two, but we'll see how we get on. So there I've just spread a nice sort of thin layer of the chutney. You don't need too much. And then we're going to get this cheesy mix. Cheese, mayo, gherkins, spring onions. Maybe a tiny bit more. So 2 pieces sandwiched together. If you wanted, you could have maybe a bit of spinach or something like that in here at this point, but I'm going to keep this nice and simple. Quickly wash my palette knife. And then the key to this, or any good toastie, and you'll notice I didn't butter the inside. That's because I'm going to butter the outside. So a nice bit of softened butter onto the outside of the bread. And then straight into our pan, nice and hot. So, whilst that's cooking away nicely, I'm just going to butter the other side, the top, and we will flip this in a moment. This isn't going to take particularly long to toast. So there we go, I've buttered that side. And just to help the cheese kind of melt a little bit, the other thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a lid on top of the pan there. So that's going to help it kind of steam a little bit as well. I'm just going to crank that up a little bit. We'll wait a few moments. How much have I got left in here? Not enough, because it all went in the blooming chutney. We'll get this guy ready. By the time I've poured this, I think it's going to be ready to flip. Oh, delicious. I don't really actually drink much cider. Just kind of started drinking it on this show. So, look at this. Here we go. Get my crank handle up my spatula. So that is the first side. Where's my actual lens? There we go. Look at that. So then we're just going to give that the same amount of time on the other side. How long on order number 6, chef? 1 minute, chef. Might be a touch more than a minute, but if there's any young chefs here watching, thinking how does one become successful in a professional kitchen, my top tip of advice, in fact this is Gibby's tip of the week, is just say anything. If someone says, how long, chef? As long as you say something, you'll be fine. Obviously, you know, don't say 14 minutes when you're poaching an egg, but you know, if you go 2 minutes, chef, you'll be all right. So I'm just going to show you where we're at. So that's our first side. And then if I just flip this whole thing, that's the second side. Bloody gorgeous, hey? And I think if that just sort of sits there now, I think I'm just going to put the lid back on, turn everything off, just give that sort of 30 seconds to a minute. Okay, here we go. The moment of truth. Oh gosh, this is going to be pretty sexy. Love letter to Wesley Hoedt, to anyone that's Dutch, to the people of Holland. And also a lovely little reference to Watford and honey. Here's to living in a world where hornets produce honey. Bon appetit, everybody. This is Stanchion Snacks. Enjoy the game. Up the Saints. I say, it's absolutely delicious. There's a little bit of smokiness from that smoked cheese, also a little bit of age from the aged goat cheese. There's a lot of complexity from the 3 different types of cheese. Then we've got that beautiful crunch of the gherkins, beautiful crunch of the spring onions, and then this sweetness and this little bit of honeyness from the chutney. It's actually the first time I've ever made chutney without any sugar in it, and I think I'll be doing it again. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next week for the big one, the biggie, Southampton versus Portsmouth. Well done.